Podcast. Hi, Evan.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
It's sunny out.
It's sunny out. We're recording a podcast.
Can life get better than this?
Do we have puppies?
I guess it can.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 22 of the Handsome Hockey Podcast. My name is Jake, and I'm here with my previously introduced colleague, Evan.
Hi, I'm Evan.
We are coming to you live. Well, it's live for us, but it'll be recorded for you from Portland, Oregon, sunny Portland, Oregon, in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And we're going to talk some hockey with you today. We're rapidly approaching what could be the weirdest or the most vanilla trade deadline ever. Obviously, still living in a pandemic, still living in a COVID time, despite what Texas and Florida say, and Mississippi. Who gives a fuck about Mississippi?
Ain't that the truth?
Mississippi doesn't give a fuck about Mississippi. Mississippi's motto is, it's here.
You know the song.
Yeah. So, remember when you were like 7 and being able to spell Mississippi was like a badge of honor?
Yeah. It's
and
like,
people would be like,
oh, who are you? I can spell Mississippi.
And you're like, you mean the easiest state really to spell? Cool. You just double all the consonants. Put an I in between them. Jerks. So anyways, trade deadline. It could be on one side, per the Athletics' Craig Custance, a lot of teams have been given the directive to cut salary for the rest of the season. You see,
nobody's got money.
Right. Well, they've got plenty of money. They just don't want to spend it and put it back into the poor people's hands. With a bunch of teams being given the directive to cut payroll, you're going to see very few buyers. Theoretically, you'll see very few buyers here at this upcoming trade deadline. The other thing is, if you are playing in America and get traded to a Canadian team, you got 2 weeks off to sit and cool your jets in Winnipeg. And in that case, making that trade, you're really kind of hamstringing yourself unless you make it now.
Right.
And the North Division is so bonkers anyways. Like, who knows? Like, Calgary could be in first place in 3 weeks. We don't know. It's nuts. Well, Toronto's dialed in. After that, it's kind of like, grab bag.
Big question mark.
There's a bunch of interesting things that are kind of in play here. But at the same time, there are going to be teams that think they're one player away, one third line left winger away from contending for a championship, and they're willing to give up a third round pick for him or a first round pick. In the past, we have seen a transition from pure rentals being traded at the trade deadline with Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman last year as two examples. Guys who are on fairly solid contracts for what they produce, but have term left. They have 1, 2, maybe 3 years left.
Right.
Teams are willing to pay a premium for a player that they'll control for a number of years afterwards. They're not willing to pay a first round pick for a guy who's only going to be there potentially for 3 months. With the financial uncertainty right now, though, teams might be more apt to do that because, oh, well, we're only going to pay half of this guy's salary for the rest of this year, and we're not on the hook for anything for him for the rest of, after this year. So hopefully, obviously, revenues return next year. We'll have fans back in games, all that good stuff, but it's still way up in the air, and we don't know.
Yeah, and going from Canada to the U.S., there's no stipulated quarantine, right? Or is that...
I thought it was a week, but
okay,
I don't know.
But yeah, it's like worse than buying a gun in America.
That's easy.
You only have to wait 3 days.
You think about it, and you have a gun in your hand, just like Edward Norton in Fight Club.
Getting an asset that you really need for 2 critical weeks probably to get used to your system as you go into the playoffs, and you have to time it up with this extra quarantine time in mind. Yeah, that's going to have a chilling effect, no doubt.
So with all of these kind of things hanging over the trade deadline, we wanted to break down some people who we thought were kind of obvious candidates, some maybe not as obvious candidates, and then people who are going to get talked about a lot, but it's not going to happen kind of guys.
Right. There's a lot of talk in the media now about certain guys and some speculation on some other guys. And, I think these people that we're kind of bringing to the forefront, some of them aren't getting talked about in some of these other avenues.
So the first person that we want to bring up is Tony D'Angelo. We're just fucking kidding. He's not going anywhere.
But I mean, he has requested to play with the AHL team, and they said, no, get your ass traded.
Yeah.
So, he could move, but
he could move into a new 1-bedroom apartment, downscaling from a 2-bedroom apartment. 1 bedroom was for him. The other bedroom was for all of his Nazi memorabilia. Okay, we don't know if Tony D'Angelo is a Nazi.
He just wears a lot of Hugo Boss.
Yeah. Lots of Adidas, lots of Puma. Also drives a Volkswagen. Okay, so for realsies. And not really for realsies, but in serious land. The first person we're going to talk about, and we're just going to get this out of the way, is Jack Eichel.
He doesn't seem long for Buffalo, does he?
He doesn't seem long for Buffalo, but with that contract and the parts that it would take to get Jack Eichel, I just don't see it happening. That's a summer trade. That's not a midseason trade.
Yeah, he's not going to a contender because you have to either trade your whole farm for him or hollow out your contention for him. So yeah, that's a really dangerous trade to make. And yeah, I think it's not happening in season, even though holy hell does that situation in Buffalo not look sustainable.
Ralph Kruger might be fired by the end of this podcast, by the end of recording today. The catch is here, so Jack Eichel currently doesn't have a no movement clause, but after the end of, I believe, next season, he gets one. Yeah. It's either 2022 or 2023. But once that happens, he only gets traded where he wants to be traded, and you're effectively hamstrung. So if you are going to trade him, if you're Buffalo, if you're Kevin Adams, you go, there's no way this is tenable. There's no way this is going to work out. I got to get as much as I can for him. And you can get so much for Jack Eichel. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He's a great player. Much like anything in Buffalo, his star has diminished a bit this year, but that's fine.
Yeah, you get the sense that that's just because they're not playing well and, he's getting exhausted.
Watching Buffalo play is like watching an acquaintance die in quicksand for me. Because
something that we were told was going to be way bigger deal in our lives.
I've liked Buffalo from afar. They're a small market. They're in a traditional hockey hotbed. They have cool jerseys. They have a cool history. I love Dominik Hasek. I love Pat LaFontaine. I really have been an admirer of Buffalo from afar for a long time.
Yeah, same.
And so they're not my best friend. They're not one of my besties. But I like them. Mm-hmm. And then you just watch them get into that quicksand pit and just turn around and be like, no, I can get out of this. But you can't. And Jack Eichel is holding on to a vine, trying to pull himself out of the pit. But the vine has a tenuous grip on a tree. And it's just a matter of time before it snaps. We're looking at a situation in Buffalo where it's everybody's sad, except for Taylor Hall because he's getting paid. More about which later. Just to kind of wrap, we said we were just going to kind of breeze through Jack Eichel, and we've now talked about him for 5 minutes.
That's fine. Okay,
real quick, yes or no, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
Do you trade Jack Eichel if you're Kevin Adams this summer?
I try.
I say yes. Because you can get a ton for him.
How many other GMs are in bad situations that are willing to give you a premium for him?
You're going to have to give up everything to get Jack Eichel.
Mm-hmm.
So potential trade partners for them, I think the Rangers, the Kings, Boston. If you're the Kings, you've got prospects galore, high end, ready to be in the NHL prospects and picks. If you're Boston, your farm system kind of sucks. So you're probably giving up one of Pasta or McAvoy because you're not giving up Bergeron or Marchand. You're not giving up old guys to get Eichel. I mean, you're giving up a young stud.
What if it's just a shit ton of picks, though?
I don't think picks gets Eichel. I think it's got to be. You have to have NHL ready talent.
Yeah, or a combination thereof.
Yeah. One of my favorite things on Twitter this week was watching fans of every other team in the NHL that isn't Buffalo saying, "Oh, this is what it'll take to get Eichel," and it's their second line left winger and a first round, and you're like, no,
cute, no. Nice try, buddy.
I was talking to my brother about it, and I said, if I'm the Wings, anybody but Sider and Raymond and Larkin, and I'm in. And then I was like, no, because you'd have to trade some of those guys to get Jack Eichel. He's a franchise center. He's one of the best centers in the league. You're going to give up those guys for him. So moving on, I haven't seen this name pop up on the multitude of lists that came out. No joke, Evan and I, as we were wrapping up last week, we're like, oh, we should do our trade deadline episode next week. And then every news media or every NHL media outlet in the world was like, here's the trade deadline. And we're like, well, poopy pants.
I guess we have to do it.
Yeah.
Or and also then just not seem original at all.
Yeah. The next one I think is James Reimer. That's
no rhyme or reason. I've always wanted that as a fantasy name.
gotta draft him, man. So James Reimer is right now the number one goalie in Carolina. However, Peter Mrazek should be back probably this week and was brilliant before he went down. And Alex Nedeljkovic has really blossomed. So you have 3 goalies in Carolina. In a normal year, if you have 3 goalies, one of them is expendable. And to me, it seems like James Reimer would be that guy. He and Mrazek are both out of contract this year. They're both UFAs.
Oh, okay.
However, Reimer is 3 years older.
Mm-hmm.
Nedeljkovic is really young. I think he's like 24. Right. And there are going to be a couple of teams out there, Colorado, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and all of the Canadian teams could use goaltending help. And for a 32-year-old goalie who's out of contract, it's probably only going to cost you a 3rd or maybe a 4th round pick to get James Reimer. So there's not a huge waste there.
I think he goes. I think he moves. Yeah. I think a preponderance of factors says that's likely to happen. What you said about Colorado and Grubauer, I think that's a perfect fit.
Yeah, Grubauer is always hurt. Their actual backup is hurt. Mm-hmm. And in Pavel Francouz, and Hunter Miska has played like 3 games in the NHL. Is that a guy you want going in as your 2G behind a guy who gets hurt frequently into the playoffs?
Probably not. So Jake Virtanen?
He was almost traded a week ago.
Yeah, close swing and a miss. Probably likely to happen.
Honestly, if he didn't have the contract he has, he would probably be a swing that Steve Yzerman takes in Detroit. I mean, he did so with Brendan Perlini and Robbie Fabry and Adam Ernie last year. Perlini flamed out massively, but Robbie Fabry worked out really well. Adam Ernie got himself a second contract. He's a good 4th line guy, I guess.
Yeah, but they're just overpaying him.
Yeah. At $3+ million next year, that's not taking a chance on somebody. Like that's a real money, especially in this economy. So,
but the Canucks can't exactly afford to retain that much salary either.
No, their cap situation in 2 years will be good. They've got a lot of contracts coming off the books next year.
But they also have to pay
Elias
Pettersson
and Quinn Hughes.
So, yeah, that's an interesting one. Does someone take him for pennies on the dollar to eat the contract too? Like that could be interesting. I mean, yeah, I love that Arizona or Detroit maybe doesn't want that, but these other teams that you've listed here sound perfect. You know, Ottawa or Anaheim.
There is talk, and we're not going to go down this rabbit hole. Maybe we'll go down in the offseason, but of Elias Pettersson being traded.
Yeah, I would not want to be the Canucks right now. I mean, you posed a really good question. Which would you rather be, the Canucks, the Red Wings, or Buffalo? And arguably, I would pick either Buffalo or the Red Wings over the Canucks.
Absolutely. The big question there is, at first, I would say the Sabres, because they have the pieces. They have Dahlin, they have Ristolainen, they have Eichel. You know, they have pieces. They have a terrible cap situation with contracts that aren't going anywhere, and they have terrible ownership. And, you know, Kevin Adams, he's in his first year as a GM there. Like, maybe he's great. I don't know. But he also signed Taylor Hall to an $8 million contract. Who knows? But if Eichel wants out, you immediately lose the most obvious building block for your team. And if Eichel's gone, I immediately say I'd rather be the Red Wings. You have tons of cap space. You have tons of prospects coming up. You have ownership who absolutely wants to build a winner. And you have Steve fucking Yzerman. So, like, I would take both of those teams over the Canucks, who have seemingly stupid ownership, a bad GM, and a really bad contract situation when you have to pay your stars now.
Yeah, they have so much wrapped up in their bottom six. It's kind of ridiculous.
But so, yeah, Virtanen, I think Benning wants to get that deal done. He's going to have to eat more than he wants. There was a trade proposed that almost went through between the Ducks and them for Danton Heinen and Virtanen.
Just the two of them?
Just the two. They couldn't make the money work, and Anaheim wasn't willing to eat that big of a contract. You're going to have to lower your asking price, I think, if you're Jim Benning, and that means probably retaining a little bit of salary. But like, honestly, if you retain $1 million of that salary and you get Virtanen off your books for the other $2.4 million or whatever it is, isn't that kind of worth it? I don't know.
Probably. Yeah, probably. Benning in the media is also adds to the...
He's so dumb.
Yeah, we say that, but you know damn well he's probably not actually that dumb. But damn, what does he do his best job in the media to make you think he's dumb?
I think he is dumb. When have NHL GMs, outside of a couple, proven that they're not dumb? It's just a bunch of old white dudes who think in their old white dude ways and are just flippant with money.
Yeah, well, I mean, he hasn't...
Sure, Kyle Okposo, $6 million a year. A broken, shattered Erik Karlsson, $11.5 million a year forever.
Well, and to his credit, Benning's bad contracts individually are not those. He has a preponderance
Louis
of...
Eriksson.
Yeah, he has preponderance of smaller bad contracts. It's like death by 1,000 cuts as opposed to one stab.
There are some cities where you have to pay a little bit extra to get guys to come to you because people just largely don't want to play in that city. I'm guessing Vancouver isn't that city.
Vancouver, you maybe have to pay people extra because it's just so damn expensive to live there.
Yeah, but like, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah, it's not like Benning is like, oh, well, to get Antoine Roussel here, we had to give him $3 million a year. Like, that's not how it goes.
No, he sort of seems to me like he has a tendency to sign optimistic contracts. That's kind of what it looks like. And they've gone the other way. And who's left at the end of the season to pick up the pieces there is going to be really interesting. You know, how...
Probably not Jim Benning.
Right.
And maybe not even Travis Green.
Right. Is Travis Green there? Travis Green will inevitably pivot to another job because he's a pretty actually decent coach. But yeah, it's pretty hard to see Jim Benning as an NHL GM again, other than the fact that NHL GMs are just the same recycled.
All of these fucking people get recycled. Like Brian Burke just got another job at a prestigious NHL team with multiple superstars on it.
Yeah, but they didn't just hire him. They hired the other guy too.
Yeah. I mean, they hired Ron Hextall, who may or may not be good.
Also, they are flailing. I mean, if you talk about a flailing move, like that is a little bit of a flail, I think. In my opinion, you're getting close to the end of the Crosby Cup window. It's maybe already closed, but you're doing everything in your power to reopen it or just bang on it angrily.
Like a bobcat in a trash can.
Yeah. Speaking of a bobcat in a trash can.
Sam Bennett, he's been trying to get out of Calgary for seemingly forever.
And to me, doing it in a relatively professional way, he's playing hard when he gets the chance. He didn't say anything publicly. His agent said, yeah, my client wants to trade. He just doesn't really fit with that team.
He's another guy with a high pedigree who has, he was a very high draft pick who has not lived up to expectations, we'll say.
He's also a dump and chase forward on a fundamentally puck possession team.
Yeah. And he's an RFA at the end of this year, so you would get some team control with him if you traded for him. His salary's $2.5 million. It's not terrible.
It's kind of weird that Calgary has not really been able to make him into a serviceable NHLer, but
that seems more on Calgary than Sam Bennett.
Yeah, I fully agree.
So maybe some potential fits for him. Maybe Vancouver. And maybe Vancouver does a swap with Jake Virtanen. I don't know.
Does that money look like it would make it possible?
I don't know.
I haven't looked at the trade. I mean, you could see him going there.
Anaheim, I think the Kings could use some help.
I like your last one best, though.
Minnesota. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. They're a fun team that could use a guy like Sam Bennett.
What a world. Talking about the Minnesota Wild as fun.
Yeah, fuck my life.
No, I mean, it's great. It makes me happy.
The Kaprizov effect. Like all of a sudden they have like this otherworldly talented guy who skates on his edges like Brian Boitano. And we're like, oh, they can be fun with just one guy. Zach Parise, still not fun, but Kaprizov is
Ryan
a lot
Suter
of fun.
is still not fun, but they've also got some other decent pieces that have also made the team fun, but it really is the Kaprizov.
Next is Taylor Hall. More Buffalo.
Back to Beefalo. Yeah.
Taylor Hall has a no movement clause and has said he is loving his time in Buffalo.
So weird.
The Puck Soup guys postulated this. I forget which one, so I'm just going to say Puck Soup guys, but I think it's very true. Nobody has damaged their reputation as a player more in the last year than Taylor Hall. You made all this noise about wanting to join a contender. I'm going to be a contender, Rock. Then you just take the big money offer to a team that sucks.
And you've not succeeded in ever joining a contender?
I mean, he was traded twice, so that's not all his fault. But for one, Adam Larson has more goals than he does this year.
Yeah, I know, right? Talk about relitigating that trade. We ripped Edmonton and then...
Rightfully so.
Yeah, but Adam Larson contributing on maybe the second best team in the North Division.
Maybe, yeah. I think the second best team in the North Division is just an asterisk. Taylor Hall still, man, you put him on the second line in Boston and maybe he remembers that he's a good hockey player. I don't know.
Yeah, that's also part of the problem is he just doesn't look good in the ice. He looks like he can't skate side to side anymore. And he's not really creative.
Yeah, he also fell over the blue line last night or yesterday. So, or was that today? I think it was today. Either way, he fell over the blue line on a breakaway. Tripped over it. And, you know, I know it's a speed bump, but most guys learn how to avoid it.
You're only allowed to do that in the outdoor game. If the ice is failing.
While the ice is turning into a bog. So I don't see Taylor Hall getting traded either. I think he's done. I think he finishes out the year, then he signs a probably overpay contract somewhere else after this year.
I think it's going to be funny that when he signs another contract and it's not $8 million, it's like 5 or 6, and then that team is good.
And then he remembers he's Taylor Hall. And so he's like, hi, I won the Hart. I'm going to score all the goals now. Yeah.
Talk about a mercurial talent.
Like, he goes to like Florida and blows up or something. Like
that would happen.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, him with Barkov would be sweet.
Yeah, and Barkov's never had a winger like Taylor Hall.
No, but he's also making Verhaeghe and
Anthony Duclair
look amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, when Duclair can stay healthy.
I think Taylor Hall is perfectly happy collecting a paycheck in Buffalo and just waits out the year. But if he were to get traded, I think Boston, Florida, or Washington.
Washington seems like a
he would immediately be one of the youngest guys on the team. Like, so
yeah, our youth movement is
27
trading for Taylor Hall.
Next, I'm going to throw this one out there. We recently referenced the Craig Custance trade board at
The Athletic.
The Athletic. Tucked away in a snippet about a couple of different Red Wings players who have super easily movable contracts and are expiring this year was a brief note that caused a firestorm in Detroit Red Wings land. Was that Steve Yzerman, who I know I probably say this too much, but I'm going to remind you all, is the greatest hockey player of all time. Steve Yzerman is taking calls on Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi. Rumor is, and this was strictly a rumor on that article, Mantha and Bertuzzi are potentially tradable pieces at this point. I could see Mantha getting traded. I really don't see Tyler Bertuzzi getting traded. I think he actually has a higher value to the Red Wings because Tyler Bertuzzi is always going to be Tyler Bertuzzi. Mm-hmm. And Tyler Bertuzzi is a pretty damn good hockey player.
And he's marketable.
Yeah, he's probably, if you're a good team, he's probably a 2. He's on your he's in your middle 6, and he puts in 20 goals, 25 goals, and
he's a
fights
physical
people.
force. Yeah,
he's a guy that you would absolutely love to have on your team and want to punch in the face when he's not.
Yeah, he's an Andrew Shaw.
And the Red Wings need him. Mantha is probably the most skilled guy on the Red Wings right now. Larkin, maybe. But he just doesn't seem to have it this year for whatever reason. And
And his ability to be traded and be valuable to another team is probably slipping away a little bit.
maybe, but he also, if he is the Anthony Mantha that Anthony Mantha usually is, he's actually on a really reasonable contract for that Anthony Mantha. It's like it's under $6 million a year, and it's for 3 more years after this. So you're getting a ton of term and a reasonably good contract for a guy who would probably bounce back in the right situation. I think he's much more tradable than Tyler Bertuzzi. And I think he's also the player, as a Red Wings fan, that I would more like to be out of the Red Wings. Like,
Yeah. I think
if it's between Bertuzzi and Mantha, I choose to keep Bertuzzi. There's a decent chance that that might be another summer deal type thing.
deciding on a price for him would be really hard because, like, you're probably not getting a first round pick, you think?
I think that's a hockey trade.
You think that's
waiting
a
to
hockey
happen.
trade?
Yeah. So here's who I throw out is Rasmus Ristolainen
For Mantha?
for man. And maybe the Sabres throw in like a 6th rounder.
That's my guess on Buffalo is like Rasmus Ristolainen's the first to go, and that's pulling out the cornerstone of the building that makes it all fall apart. Yeah, Risto for Mantha seems like it's in the realm of reasonable.
And this is just me going, oh my God, Rasmus Ristolainen is, oh, I love that guy. He's not a great NHLer, but he is such a dick, and I would love him.
I think
Wings.
he's pretty decent.
He's a very good player. He's not a great player. He's a very good player. But like throwing him on a first or second pair, I mean, he's a right D. We would have Seider, Hronik, and Risto on the right-hand side for years. That's I'm all about. Next is also guys who I would love to see the Red Wings trade for. Jake Bean and Hayden Fleury down in Carolina. Carolina, as per usual, has a ton of defensemen prospects, all of whom are good. With the expansion draft coming, Carolina not going to be able to keep all of their coveted assets on the back line. So they've got Dougie Hamilton, Jacob Slavin, Brady Shea, Brett Pesce, all guys who they would like to keep. Dougie Hamilton's contract is up at the end of this year, and so they may or may not re-sign him. Who knows what happens there? He's only 20. I thought Dougie Hamilton was like 40, and he's only 27. But so Hayden Fleury, Jake Bean are guys who could potentially move in this offseason. I think
They're sort of building block defensemen.
yeah, they're young guys who will be good somewhere, but it just doesn't, with the expansion draft coming, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for Carolina to lose one or both of them for nothing. So I think we could see one of them moving. I would love to see the Red Wings swoop in for Jake Bean. I think he's a left-sided defenseman, which we don't have much of in our system. But also teams who need maybe that lower level defensive help right now. Like they need a third line guy right now, but Hayden Fleury or Jake Bean can grow into like a second line, first pairing guy. So guys like Vegas, Dallas, who already have good teams, but could stash a really good defenseman on their third line for now and like let him grow.
And also is probably needs to prepare to lose some of their more expensive defensemen at some point.
Yes. And then finally, every player on every team that is either going into or is already in a rebuild. I'm not even going to get into the potential guys who can get traded here.
Yeah. Chicago has several.
Chicago, Ottawa, Detroit. The Predators should probably start a fire sale, so they should have a bunch of guys available. The Sharks would be if they had any tradable contracts.
Yeah, it's like the Sharks are like a really expensive.
It's like when you buy a really expensive pair of jeans. We're talking like $250 jeans, and you wear them out one night and then you rip the ass out of them.
I was going to say you just spend a lot of money on Ed Hardy jeans and then they go out of style. No,
was Ed Hardy ever in style?
For some people.
For white trash.
Yeah, and
yeah, that's a white trash clothing brand.
I remember I took my mom into an Ed Hardy store once in the Mall of America just because we walked by it, and she was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yes, yeah. Is it still there? Does it still exist?
I don't know. I hope not.
Yeah, nothing like bedazzled skulls to just make me want to buy something.
But yeah, the Sharks remind me of an estate sale, but everything's still too expensive. They were just that rich when they were alive, but now they're dead. The Predators need to sell off everything for parts.
Everything.
That's just, I don't even know who you keep besides maybe Philip Forsberg.
Honestly, I think Philip Forsberg is one of the guys who is most likely to be traded. I think he's their most desirable asset.
Yeah, it's possible.
Speaking of the Predators are dead.
Oh, yeah.
They are DED dead. All of their people are hurt, and they already sucked. So they currently have Matt Duchene, Ryan Ellis, Luke Kunin, UC Saros, and Lucas Spisa on IR. They are absolutely terrible as a team. They can't score. They're good against the Red Wings.
Their metrics are awful.
I mean, we just kind of talked about it, but that is a team that needs to be just a fire sale. Like, they need to start over. It's going to be hard because they have a bunch of contracts that are really long term. Honestly, if Ryan Ellis hadn't been hurt, I would have thought he would have been one of the guys more likely to move because his deal, like, he's still an incredibly good defenseman and he's only $6.2 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you're not trading Matt Duchene. Roman Josi is possible to trade, but he's got a huge contract. You're not trading Ryan Johansson.
He's kind of the heart of the team too. But Saros, doesn't look like the
he's
world
definitely
beater
not the
that we
answer.
thought he was going to grow into, and Pecorino is now over the hill.
There's going to have to be a reckoning. They have a come to Jesus moment coming. They have been for probably the last 10 years or 6-7 years. They have been like the portrait of Dorian Gray. And it's been perfect and pristine and beautiful and regal and handsome. And now it's got all the warts on it. Now it's old, it's decrepit, it's gray, it's just bleh. Now that portrait, you got to throw it on the fire. You got to move forward. You got to start your life over. You got to reclaim your youth.
You just got to take the garage sale sticker gun and go around the locker room and just put prices on people's heads.
Yeah. Luke Kunin.
25 cents.
No? Oh, damn. So the Predators are dead. You know what else isn't dead?
What?
Fucking bigotry in hockey.
Even though we wish it would die, it's still not dead.
Is it just alive and well?
Well, I don't know. I think there have been some inroads made to either expose it or get it to go away. I would not say it's well. It's alive and sickly and making aggressive grasping for air.
Well, we'll debate that. So we've recently seen some hockey players make some questionable decisions on social media.
Shocked face.
Yeah,
this is my shocked face.
That isn't all that surprising because hockey players are humans. Humans make stupid decisions on the internet.
If anything, I'm almost kind of more amazed that we don't see more of this.
Recently, Thomas Greiss posted an RIP post to Rush Limbaugh on his social media. I think we have a couple of times joked about Rush Limbaugh in the past, about how we're pretty thrilled that he's dead. Thomas Greiss is sad. Thomas Greiss is so sad that he posted an RIP message to Rush Limbaugh on his social media. Now, before we continue, I will say this. Evan and I are not saying you can't be conservative.
No.
We're not saying you can't have conservative views. What we are saying is you can't support bigotry, racism, homophobia, transphobia. So you can't support those things and still expect people to not talk some shit about you on a podcast that nobody listens to.
You can't expect to be a NHL role model and also, support those bigoted views.
Thomas Greiss has in the past, and before we continue, Thomas Greiss is a German. Big to know. In the past, during the election of Donald Trump, Thomas Greiss liked to post that compared Hillary Clinton to Adolf Hitler. Now, big sigh. For an American to like a post or post a post comparing Hillary Clinton to Adolf Hitler is bad. 1, learn some fucking history. 2, you're probably a neo-Nazi. 3, you're wrong.
Say what you want about Hillary Clinton's actual political missteps or, her sort of unlikability, fine. But, to say, yeah, she's Hitler, like that's just, it's not creative. It's not interesting. It's just kind of stupid.
It's an attempt at God winning an argument that backfires.
Mm-hmm.
And also, she never put 9 million people on train cars and exterminated them systematically.
Mm-hmm.
So for an American to like a post like that shows ignorance, stupidity, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, blah, blah. Shows you're fucking ignorant.
But it's to be expected from our educational system.
Yeah, where we don't teach people anything but what the things that we want them to learn. Yeah.
Or actively teach them falsehoods.
Yeah.
In the case
Did you know Christopher Columbus was a fucking rad dude? Discovered America.
Did you know that
he discovered it?
Did you know that Robert E. Lee wasn't a racist at all?
No.
And
well, dadgum. You know what we should do? Put up some statues for both of them. So Thomas Greiss, however, is a German. And if you don't know much about history, like you don't know enough to not like a post that compares Hillary Clinton to Hitler, the Germans should fucking know.
Also, that's something that they deal with very actively in German society still to this day. They have laws against Hitler glorification and Nazi messaging that we don't have because
freedom of speech.
Well, no, they still technically have pretty much the same freedom of speech that we do, but they have these special laws because of this thing that happened, 80 years ago or so.
Yeah, 1933 to 1945-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So Thomas Greiss knows full fucking well about the history of Hitler, and he knows better than to fucking post or to like something that compares anybody in the rest of history, except for maybe Joseph Stalin, to Hitler.
Yeah, or Pol Pot or whatever. But it's like...
Yeah, Pol Pot's pretty shitty. For somebody with such a fun name, he shouldn't have been such a piece of shit.
Oh, yeah, for real. Like...
We're not going to get into Cambodia genocide here, but it's fucking bad. You couple this with, and I'm not going to say that Thomas Greiss is a Nazi. I'm not going to say that. I don't have a picture of him goose-stepping. I don't have video of him at a neo-Nazi, like Unite the Right rally. I don't have any of that.
What you do have is a picture of him with a goalie mask.
Wearing a goalie mask where the two S's in his last name are deliberately made to look like the Waffen-SS lightning symbol.
And even like curiously placed.
And
very
in a
near
different font from the rest of his name on the helmet.
And you know what he would say to that? I'm just trolling the libs, dude.
Oh, well, guess what? He fucking got me. So, again, not saying Thomas Greiss is a Nazi. However, in a recent article in a German newspaper, the German national team coach came out and said that Thomas Greiss has not played for the national team since 2017 and is not welcome to play for his home country anymore because he, quote unquote, isn't compatible with their team's values.
Wow.
That says that there's some extremism going on. If you are banned from your national team for your political views that aren't compatible, you got some extremist shit going on. And now I'm fucking pissed that he's a Red Wing.
GMs make mistakes.
I wish I had known that when I banged the drum for the Red Wings to sign him this summer.
We're all learning about these things. I will admit that considerably more about hockey than I, but we're both learning things about the league still and the backstories of players because we're more interested in it now. And of course, that's going to be one of the kind of things that comes up. I mean, not like anybody that plays for the team I root for has any problematic history.
Or, the team itself.
Yeah.
The Chicago Hockey Club.
Yeah, not at all.
Has a problematic problem with their fucking mascot. So what this means is, since I'm now on the Jake Bean and Rasmus Ristolainen to Detroit trains, I got to do a deep dive. I got to figure out,
you're just going to find out that Jake Bean is actually related to Sean Bean. That's
cool.
That. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
I love Sean Bean.
Yeah. Who doesn't? Meanwhile, in fucking Texas, Jamie Benn exists.
Yeah.
And He's a pretty good hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
He's a questionable human being.
He's done some performative things to show up with some, colored hockey tape and a colored NHL t-shirt.
Which makes the next thing worse.
Right.
Fuck you, Jamie Benn, for liking a Candace Owens post that says that biological women can't compete, or men can't compete in men's sports. You transphobic fuck.
I mean, I agree that that's a hard conversation and a difficult thing for a lot of athletes to come to terms with, but Candace Owens sucks. And she has nothing productive to say or offer the conversation.
She's making tons of money with her sucking, though.
Besides, she's making a ton of money as a token mouthpiece for the sort of bigotry machine. I mean,
as soon as we started talking about bigotry in hockey, it started raining in Portland.
Oh.
So
that's kind of what bigotry does to our hockey experience.
If you've been listening to us for the last couple of months, you know that Evan and I are, let's just say, anti this sort of fucking nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually try pretty hard to not swear during most of the recordings.
Me too.
And then this shit happens and I say shit and fuck a bunch of times because there is no room for hatred of any kind, except for hating the Colorado Avalanche in hockey.
Except for hating your rivals.
Right. So there's no room for bigotry, for hate speech, for this like fucking neo-Nazi right-wing contemporary. Again, we're not saying you can't be conservative. Being conservative doesn't mean you hate transgendered people. Like you can be conservative and not be full of hatred for the other. It's entirely possible. There are millions of Americans who do it every day.
Mm-hmm.
When you cross the line is when you hate somebody just for being different, just for being other, and like actively go out of your way to search out voices that also belittle and dehumanize those already marginalized voices. So Thomas Greiss and Jamie Benn, like honestly, like there's no room for your attitudes in the game of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that the blowback that has come across on the internet is enough for maybe even just one of them to maybe think it sounds like maybe Jamie Benn is a little bit closer than Thomas Greiss with his Nazi helmet. But it's almost worse for Jamie Benn to do these performative things like do the pride tape and do the hockey is for everyone stuff and then go out and prove that he doesn't think hockey is for everyone. Like, especially on a team that was one of the few teams that took a knee for the anthem when hockey restarted last year after the George Floyd killing. You had members of your team actually, that you are the captain of, actually go out and say, like, this, enough is enough. And as the captain of those players, you should have the guts and the wherewithal to, one, stand up for them, stand with them, and two, learn what they're talking about, learn about their experiences, and actually take that to heart so you can actually be a captain of men. You can't actually be a captain if you are actively antagonistic towards the lifestyles of other people that may affect your team.
Yeah, and he has shown, like we said, some problematic things, but also, it's hailing now.
Yeah. Jamie Benn caused hail in Portland. If there is any damage, you can send the bill to Jamie Benn, care of the Dallas Stars, who also made it a point to put out a fucking statement about how they will always play the national anthem at their venue for their games. Fuck Dallas. Fuck that whole state.
That was in response to Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks quietly not playing the national anthem.
Yeah, who nobody said anything about.
Until he said something. The Dallas Stars came out and were like, well, we're American.
No, you're playing a Canadian game full of foreign players. Hockey is not an American sport. It's a world sport.
I mean,
gargle balls.
Yeah, I have no problem with playing the national anthem. You know, I think maybe call me traditionalist, but I think You should just play the national anthem and call it that. I hate that it's become attached to all this jingoism and performative military BS because, our military has invested millions and millions of dollars in doing so.
Millions might be undercutting it.
Right. I wish we could divorce the actual anthem from the jingoism, basically. This fake patriotism that is actually just nationalism in disguise. But I think, it's also important to kind of like take stock of, what was done wrong, what the problem is, and grade kind of the faux pas. Because, Jamie Benn has, done maybe some performative stuff and also liked a post. Thomas Greiss liked a post, but then he produced his own post, which is exponentially more distasteful. To give a sad sob to Rush Limbaugh dying is exponentially worse in my mind than liking a post by Candace Owens, which is dumb and bad, but is also addressing a tough to deal with issue.
Rush Limbaugh read the names of people who died from AIDS on air while laughing.
Yeah, absolutely awful.
He's a horrific human being.
While also probably high as balls on opioids.
And smoking a cigar that killed him.
And telling people that the cigar won't kill him or you, and that secondhand smoke is a liberal conspiracy. Yeah, coming up with an original post memorializing Rush Limbaugh is exponentially worse than just liking a post, in my opinion.
I agree.
That said, if you like a dumb post, you should probably get your hand slapped for it on social media like Jamie Benn did. And hopefully, maybe he learns from this. He's like a small town boy from Alberta, right?
That's no excuse.
No, but, we're all in the process of learning. Maybe he is too. That's being optimistic. I will fully admit that.
Let's talk about some fun stuff. How about we talk about Kirill Kaprizov?
Oh, yeah. The future Calder winner, Kirill Kaprizov?
Yeah, this is our segment on the Calder Trophy, and it's called It's Probably Kirill Kaprizov.
I don't understand at this point how it could be anyone else. I started doing all this research and putting stats together and stuff, and it's no. Just eye test and numbers. The stats don't lie.
He's been playing in Minnesota for 2 months, and he's already the most exciting player to ever play for the Minnesota Wild.
Which is not saying much, but it also begs the question, should he be also considered a rookie? He's a 23-year-old former professional from Europe, so he's that good that we're NHL looking rookie. At. Right. He's that good that people are legitimately wondering if the Calder conversation should be amended somehow. But yes, it's off the charts. And the only kind of distant second would probably be Kevin Lankinen for the Blackhawks as a rookie goaltender, who is also relatively old and played a lot of hockey.
If we're talking about young guys, it's probably Josh Norris, I think, or Tim Stützle. What a boring Calder race. This actually ends up, I think, being the most boring Calder race that I can remember because it's so very obviously Kaprizov at this point.
And you watch his highlights and watch him play hockey, and it sort of seems like Minnesota has found a Patrick Kane level playmaker out of nowhere. His highlight with the sort of behind the net, behind the back pass was amazing, and he looks like maybe the best skater in the league, or one of the best skaters
for sure, yeah.
in the league. It's a boring race. His play is not boring. His play is out of this world and has reinvigorated Minnesota into an exciting team where they've been
watchable team for the first time in my life.
Boring as hell for years. It's where they turned a talent like Mikko Koivu into a
checking center.
And it's nice to see. I'm happy for my relatives in Minnesota that get to watch them and are probably going to be able to watch his career for years. All
right, so we're going to do a kind of quick trip through some NHL headlines here, and then we're gonna round this out with some fun.
Mm-hmm.
Fun for me. I don't know if it's going to be fun for Evan.
On the hot seat here. So Walter Gretzky passed away this week. We were very sad to see that. I didn't realize that Wayne Gretzky's dad was still around, so learned a little bit about him. And apparently he was, one of these really nice dads of hockey. I mean, he's sort of considered Canada's dad. A lot of people were effusive with stories about his famously kind and magnanimous nature. PK Subban posted a cute picture of him with, meeting Mr. Gretzky as a kid, and it was sad to see Wayne have to give a eulogy, but
it's a sad day for Wayne Gretzky and his family, and also for Canada, somebody who you don't think of a hockey dad as the guy who becomes one of these just like most visible people in a sport in a country.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're the dad of the greatest non-Steve Yzerman hockey player of all time, and you are, very visible, there are plenty of players who have come up through Canada whose parents were just, they were their parents. But Walter Gretzky was something more than that. And I think that is attributed to his kind, open nature. He was generous with his time. He wanted to be around hockey and wanted to be part of the kind of the ethos or the fabric of the sport, especially in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you see so many players come out with effusive praise for a guy who wasn't their dad. Wayne's been out of the league for 20 years now, and these are players who were like 6 or 2 or whatever when Wayne was still playing, and you still get these quotes from kids who came up playing hockey in Canada, who met him, who he had time for them, regardless of whether they were like this insane prospect or they were just somebody like tying up their skates for the first time.
And he was said to be like a fixture at rinks and around Bradford, Ontario, where he lived. People loved him there, and they will undoubtedly miss him heavily. Goodbye to him, and congratulations on a life well lived. So someone we also said goodbye to this week was Fred Saskamoose, one of the first Indigenous NHL players, who passed away this week at 86 from COVID complications. He only played 11 games in the Big Show for the Blackhawks in 1953, but you talk to anyone and they'll tell you those games were outsized for their importance in the Indigenous community and for Indigenous hockey players that have come after him. He was awarded the Order of Canada in 2018 and served for a time as the chief of the Atakakuk Cree Nation and developed sports programs for youth, including a hockey team for First Nations teams called the Chief Thunderstick Championship. He has a memoir forthcoming soon, which is kind of a bummer that he passed away before it was out and, he could really drum up support for it. It's called Call Me Indian: From the Trauma of Residential School to Becoming the NHL's First Treaty Indigenous Player. And it's about his story, born in 1933 and attended one of Canada's infamous residential schools for Indigenous youth that basically tried to reprogram them into not being Indigenous. There he found and immersed himself in hockey and worked his way up to have his kind of cup of coffee in the NHL, shall we say. He seems like this super nice guy who played a role similar to Walter Gretzky in the development of a lot of youth players. And there's a story that I read that they got together 300 people in a theater last year to watch one of his first games of the Blackhawks, and he just like shot up out of his seat with glee when he first gets on the ice in this game, and they just like watched him play for 60 minutes or however long he was actually in the ice. He's a trailblazer, and I'm glad that the story focused on him in the New York Times, and that was brought to my attention, and I got to learn about his great story and what he's brought to the NHL and hockey in general as a trailblazer from Indigenous communities. Shifting to on the ice craziness this week. We saw several questionable hits
from questionable people
and questionable penalties or not penalties or suspensions, fines handed out. So we'll start with Tom Wilson's big hit on Brandon Carlo, which was in my mind, a blatant headhunt, but it was relitigated very carefully by the NHL to be boarding.
If this was any other player, we'd probably be, that was a dirty hit. They need to get suspended. Hopefully they learn. This is Tom Wilson,
who has been suspended many times.
This is now his 5th suspension
for awful hits. This doesn't even rank in his awful hits because the canon of those is really, really bad. He's been on good behavior, relatively speaking, for the last 18 months or so, which makes this suspension, I guess, somewhat lessen. But he had an in-person hearing with the league, and that's for 6+ game suspensions.
We got a 7-game suspension, and
I agree with you though that it should have been more.
It should have been 10+. Hockey is a physical game, and it is inherently dangerous. Not only are you allowing humongous human beings to skate around at 20 to 25 miles an hour
on knives
with a weapon. and you are containing that in a physical barrier that allows people to be driven into it. It's an inherently dangerous game. We have heard, especially in the United States, we have learned a lot about CTE from NFL players. And while the kinds of hits to the head that you see in the NFL are largely different from what you see in the NHL, and in hockey, you still have a lot of concussion issues in the NHL. For example, how many more years of Eric Lindros should we have had?
Oh, yeah. Many.
Being a tyrant in the NHL. And by tyrant, I mean just like destroying fools. Pat LaFontaine, we lost almost a year of Sidney Crosby's career to concussions, to savage hits. There shouldn't be, especially for somebody like Tom Wilson, who has shown little to no restraint. And like his coach came out and tried to defend him. And it's like, no, like just say he acted like an asshole and he should be suspended like an asshole. I don't understand why we need to defend these people anymore.
I think, Laviolette could have been matter of fact and just said, yeah, it's a bad hit. We support our player.
We're sorry for Brandon Carlo and we wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah. And also that penalty galvanized, or it wasn't called a penalty on the ice, but all of a sudden Boston turned the switch on and shit stomped him. So that's probably a better penalty than any minor or major that could have been assessed. That said, it should have been a call on the ice. And Jesus Christ, why are we missing so many of these calls that should be obvious? It's not like it was away from the puck.
It was right in front of people. Yeah. Kudos to Trent Frederick and Jared Tenorti. Jared Tenorti, who was playing in his second game as a member of Boston, had just gotten claimed off of waivers because their defense is so decimated, drove his truck from Nashville to Boston, playing in his second game, and showed up just in time to kick Tom Wilson's ass.
He drove his truck right into Tom Wilson.
Yeah, one could hope.
This was a hockey play. It was just a bad and dirty hockey play. And it's going to be really interesting to see if the NHLPA goes to bat for him and tries to legislate down this suspension or not, because he's not exactly doing good things for other people's careers.
In other news, we had a couple of vicious slewfoots this week. We had Brett Pesce slewfoot Robbie Fabry and get himself a 5K suspension.
Yeah, it was so dumb. Robbie Fabry's going to the bench and Brett Pesce's trying to trip him up, and it's a clear intent to injure. There's no place for that in the league.
Kyler Yamamoto also slewfoot Rasmus Anderson in a game last night, so we have that beauty going for us. Kyler Yamamoto has since been fined for his actions. And then we had Nathan McKinnon get hit in the head by a rookie in his first game for San Jose. That one actually doesn't look inherently dirty. It just looks like a bad check, and like McKinnon kind of turns into it.
Mm-hmm. And McKinnon has his head down in the blue line and takes a high hit from rookie Joachim Blickfield, who I think he got 2 games suspension, but a lot of that was based on the fact that he comes from across the ice to hit McKinnon.
Yeah, it was charging. In good news, there was some good news from this. Like I have a huge birthmark on my chest, and so I'm sure it's been bright red with how heated I've been this entire time.
Glowing.
Yeah, it's radioactive at this point. In good news, there was some women's hockey this weekend.
Oh yeah.
And it was a lot of fun.
It was super fun.
The PWHPA, along with they're not teams, but they're locales in Minnesota and New Hampshire. They did play some hockey games this week. We talked about this last week. They did play at Madison Square Garden last week. Mm-hmm. This week they played in Chicago, with the game yesterday, March 6th, being at the United Center. It was broadcast nationally on NBC Sports Network, which was awesome to see for women's hockey.
Yeah, very cool.
Especially after we lost out on it with the NWHL having to close down for COVID. So, and it was some exciting hockey. There's obviously some incredibly talented players, Olympians and national team players. A lot of the best players in the world are involved in this PWHPA. And so it was really cool to see that level of hockey. I didn't get to watch the game that was in New York, so I didn't get to see the Brianna Decker kills everyone game where she just destroying fools. But we did get to see some goals. Abby Rock, who like all of the old timers in the women's hockey diaspora are saying is going to be the best player in the world here in like 2 years. She opened the scoring on Saturday and looked incredible. I think we're going to see a lot of her in the years that come. Mm-hmm. And so, but the game was free flowing. It was kind of a boring game in that it wasn't in doubt for a large portion of it. It was 3-0 for a good chunk of the game after 2 goals in the second.
But credit to New Hampshire for scoring a goal in the last 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, talk about playing full 60 minutes. That is that.
Yeah, the way
they did it.
Yeah, the way that the PWHPA has set up these games is that you get points for certain things, like scoring a lot of goals or for a shutout or a hat trick. So you get extra points added to your point total for the game. And so in a weekend series, scoring that goal could have really meant something. Now, they ended up getting destroyed today, 6-2. Minnesota won again. That one goal didn't end up playing part in it, but it really could have. So it was really, that's why they're doing that like play to the whistle sort of mentality. Like even in a game that seems out of hand, that one goal could have meant a lot had today's result gone differently. So really cool to see these women on the ice, and kind of there was an all-female officiating crew, all-female broadcast team, and an all-female in-house Catherine Tappan and AJ Malesko. AJ Malesko did color and did the pregame with Catherine Tappan. So an all-female bonanza of like awesomeness is what I really would say. And so
yeah, give us more of this, I think, is what we would say. The only caveat is that everyone was pretty white. You know, it would be nice to get a more diverse set of voices if that's possible. But the women's hockey professional community, in terms of like broadcasters and officials and players, is still pretty white. So they don't have a whole lot to pull from. But I think if there's one step forward, it would be that. But give us more of this. It was fun to watch. It was good hockey. Yeah, it's a little bit too bad that Team Minnesota / Adidas was just that much better than the other team. But that happens.
We were just talking about diversity in it, but it turns out that Abby Rock, she grew up in the Wahnapitae First Nation community up in the UP in Michigan, near Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan.
Oh, cool.
So it's really cool to see somebody coming from that background be part. And I didn't know until just now. So
yeah, and you see her as a future star.
When Kendall Coyne Schofield is saying, no, she will be the best player in the world, I listen, because Kendall Coyne Schofield is maybe the best player in the world.
Yeah, Kendall Coyne Schofield looked amazing out there.
Well, she's playing in her hometown, and they pointed out that she hadn't played at the United Center since she was like 9.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what a really cool story for her to kind of come back to that at this point in her career. You're very right. It's a very white sport, maybe even more white than the men's side of things. And so hopefully over time, we can see, as the men's game diversifies, we can also see the women's game diversify.
Overall, round of applause, and we want to see more of it. So speaking of round of applause, Brent Seabrook got one of those this week when he announced not that he's officially retiring, but that he will not play anymore. A soft retirement, if you will. And
a soft adjustment of the Chicago Blackhawks salary cap.
That won't change all that much in that he was already on LTIR, right? What was kind of cool is he gave a press conference, and I just kind of forgot how affable and funny he is. He's describing his medical issues and waking up and not being able to walk, and also like in the same breath sort of makes fun of his skating and just sounds like a hockey dad. And then he's talking about, after he announced this, like Duncan Keith is like his best friend. And so he said that Duncan Keith was like a dog at his side. He couldn't get away from him. They did an interview with him during the last Hawks game, and he chokes up, and it's hard not to take one right in the feels, seeing him actually hang it up. But yeah, he said that he just couldn't skate anymore. He said that there's not really any cartilage left in one of his hips, and went and practiced with the taxi squad, and he'll have a good skate and then like not be able to get up the next day or that. So it sucks that he won't be able to enjoy hockey in retirement, but thank you for those 3 Stanley Cups and all the roles you played. I would say he scored some of the most critical goals in those Stanley Cup runs. One to send the Bruins packing in Game 7, a couple to just like keep them alive when you didn't think they were going to score to stay alive. For some reason, he always found himself in that spot. So for a relatively defense-first defenseman, what an amazing career, and wish him the best in retirement. And hopefully playing shinny and ice fishing won't be too hard on that hip.
Yeah, Godspeed to Brent Seabrook's career and to him and his... The thing about being a professional athlete is you retire, but you have a lot of life ahead of you. And so hopefully in his retirement, he's able to enjoy it, get whatever surgeries or medical attention he needs to be able to, live a long life that is relatively pain-free. And, we wish him, despite the fact that he's a member of the Chicago hockey team, happy trails. It is I am so enthusiastically happy about this. Any chance I get to put Evan in a precarious position where he is uncertain of himself, I take it. Probably stealing this kind of gimmick from Puck Soup a little bit, and that's okay because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they've inspired a lot of what we do anyways, so
here we're going to play our inaugural game. And I think this will probably become a thing as we move forward. There'll be different variations of the game or a game, but this is going to be the first one. This week's game is I'm going to say a name. And they are either a hockey coach, an NHL hockey coach.
In the NHL system or NHL proper?
NHL history.
Okay.
Or a boxer.
The dog or like a
human boxer.
Human that hits other humans in the face.
A pugilist.
Okay.
Or a racehorse.
All right.
So if he gets all 9 correct, he gets the grand prize. If he gets 6 to 8 correct, he gets second prize. 3 to 5 right, he gets third prize. And if he gets none through 2, so 1 or 2 correct, I get to shame him.
More than usual.
Yes, more than usual.
I just like that you went with eternal shame. So I need to get 3 right to get out of eternal shame. I think that's my realistic goal.
If you get into that second prize range, I'm going to be really impressed. The flip side of the eternal shame thing is you might have my admiration for this. We'll see.
Historically, I'm a good test taker, but I'm not filling in bubbles here. So we'll see.
And I also specifically kept this Google Doc out of the podcast Google Docs, so you didn't have a chance to see it.
I hoped you were doing that.
Just so you know, our listeners know, the prizes will be totally fake, but I'm going to make them up on the spot, so it should be fun. All right.
Let's roll.
Here we go. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
The first one we're going to go with is Buddy Bear. Buddy Bear.
Can I get a spelling
of the last name?
Yeah.
Baer. Horse, boxer, or coach?
I'm going to go with hockey coach.
Buddy Bear
Yeah.
is a boxer.
All
right. So 0. We're sitting on 0.
And there's 9, right? 9
there
questions.
There are 9, yes. Okay. Second one, Smarty Jones.
That's a horse.
Bing, 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 bing.
I think I knew that.
Yeah.
I think I've is that a recent horse?
I don't know. I just looked up human-esque horse names. I love Google. And most of them were like Jim and Todd. I'm like, no, I need a full name. So Smarty Jones.
Oh yeah, Smarty Jones was a popular horse in my lifetime. So, okay.
All right. So number 3, you're 1 for 2. Not bad. Mike McCollum.
I'm gonna go with hockey coach.
You're wrong again. That is a boxer.
This boxer versus hockey coach is killing me.
It's going to get worse.
Ugh.
Next one, Lester Patrick.
I'm going to go with hockey coach.
You are correct, sir.
Yes.
2 of 4. 2 of 4. One more and you are out of eternal shame.
I like my chances for making it out of eternal shame.
You say that now.
Going to try and get out of the river Styx here.
Tommy Gorman.
I'm going to go with man that has produced a lot of gore and old-timey boxer.
You're wrong. Sorry.
Damn it!
Still in the eternal shame category. You are 2 for 5.
Hockey coach?
He is a hockey coach. Tommy Gorman is a hockey coach.
Do you know anything about him?
No, I thought about it, like adding a bunch of history in here, but then I was like, this script is already really long. So I was thinking about my future editing decisions. And I was like, nah, we're good. All right. So Beautiful Jim Key.
Beautiful Jim Key.
Yes.
Key. I'm going to go with boxer.
You're incorrect.
Damn it. That's
Beautiful
a horse?
Jim Key is a horse.
That one was 50-50 between boxer or horse.
Oh, it could have gone either way. I agree.
Because sweet science, calling somebody beautiful, but yeah, Jim Key.
Yeah, I'm throwing some curveballs.
Yeah, these are really good.
Some are obvious.
Are very hard.
Some are obvious. Some are not obvious.
So
you are at 2 for 5. I believe we have 1, 2. Sorry, you are 2 for 6.
Okay.
We have 3 left.
3 left. So I have 3 chances to make it out of eternal damnation.
Yes. Ike Cordy.
That sounds like a hockey coach name.
You're wrong.
What?
That is a boxer. We're getting down to the nitty gritty.
I know.
This is so much fun.
I feel like the fucking Atlanta Falcons trying to hold off the Patriots here.
I am also now worried with how much fun I'm having. I'm worried about when the tides are turning and embarrassing myself and my family. All right. The next is Gus Lisnevich.
All right. That's either a hockey coach or a boxer. I'm going to go with, that's not a racehorse name. I'm going to go with hockey coach.
Oh, boxer.
Jesus Christ. That sounds like a hockey coach name, if ever. You were writing a harder test than the ACT.
Yeah. You're 33 on the ACT means nothing here. All right. So this is your final chance.
I know. Jeez. Will I live in eternal damnation forever?
Punch Imlock.
Really?
Punch Imlock.
This is either a gimme or a red herring.
I saved the best for last.
Punch Imlock.
I can spell Imlock if you
Can I get it used in a sentence?
Punch Imlock is maybe a human or maybe a horse.
Punch Imlock. Like, I just want to go with like the funny answer because I feel like I'm going to be wrong no matter what.
Man, but eternal shame is.
I know this. I had such a good start there.
Yes, you've fallen off the wagon, much like the Predators.
Yeah.
Punch Imlock.
I'm gonna go with hockey coach.
You got it! Yay!
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I feel like we know what kind of style of hockey he coached.
I hope it's the pugilistic kind.
It was beautiful European passing.
Yeah, he's actually Slovakian royalty. I don't know.
So I made it out of eternal shame into
Just
the third prize.
By the scruff on your chin, you made it into the third prize. Now, do you want to know what the third prize is?
Well, first of all, I want to give you mad props for putting this game together. That was fantastic. Yeah, those names were something.
Yeah, I went through a list of 1940s hockey coaches.
Okay.
And 1940s boxers, and then just like went through a list of hockey coaches. And yeah, so again, scared for when the tables are turned, but I think it's a good first step.
It's all about the friends you make along the way. It's not about the prize.
Well, in this case, you get a fake prize.
What is my fake prize?
That fake prize is a sunny day in Portland. You'll never see another one until June. However, this sunny day in Portland will be brought to you by a cold front that comes in off of the coast that will produce some sort of effect that is meteorological that will give us 1 day of sun here in the Portland metro area. Someday, not at your choosing, but when you least expect it, it'll show up out of nowhere.
It'll always be like the busiest day of work.
Yes, you will be stuck at your work desk for 7 to 10 hours of that beautiful sunny day. But then, just as you are able to get away from your desk to release the shackles of the work hellbeast, it will rain. And you will not get to taste that sweet sustenance of sun. Because let's face it, third price is not very good. So you do get to witness that sunny day through the windows. You can even press your hand up against the window to feel its warmth and coziness, but you will not get to experience it. Congratulations on a job poorly done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to thank the Academy. No, I would like to thank you. That was really fun and really funny. And, with the difficulty of those answers, I don't actually feel bad only getting 3 of 9 correct.
No, that was rough. That was real tough. If you had gotten 6 to 8, I was going to be really impressed.
No, yeah. I feel like, between some 50-50s, I could have probably got up to 5. But yeah, 6 to 8, I don't think that was going to be possible.
Well,
don't worry. It's more fun being in the hot seat than it is stressful.
All right. Well, with that, folks, thank you for listening. We're having a great time bringing you these podcasts, and thank you so much for listening, taking time out of your day to throw us on a car ride or while you're ignoring your coworkers, wherever that might be. We are super thrilled to have you on this journey with us. And, thanks for sticking around and sticking with us.
Yeah, we are available at handsomehockey.com, at Handsome Hockey Podcast on Instagram, at Handsome Hockey on Twitter, or at handsomehockeypod@gmail.com, or on the Handsome Hockey Facebook page. And you can find us anywhere you can listen to a podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Overcast, and Red Circle.
As we slip away from this episode, we just want to once more say thank you for listening, and everybody out there, stay handsome.
Restez beau tout le monde.